Hello and welcome back to another reading journal video. I can't believe it's already the end of November, and with only 2 months to go in 2025, this month has had a real focus on goal completion. I've come to accept that I'm unlikely to finish any of these specific goals except for finishing 120 books. But I have been focusing on my 25 in 2025 as I really want to complete that as I put these books on the list for a reason at the start of the year. So 3 of the 4 books from this session were from this list, with the other one only not being off here because I was reading it for a friend's birthday. I'm currently planning my 2026 journal layouts and I'm trying to decide how to colour in the spines on this page, but I haven't really found a way that I'm 100% sold on. So if you have any ideas I could consider, let me know in the comments down below. I've just quickly flipped back to the goals page as I decided to count Gideon the Ninth as a non-fantasy romance book as it is quite sci-fi and I'm cheating at this point in the year. Unfortunately, almost all of the books on my 25 in 2025 list are part of a wider series, so I'm adding more than I want to on this tracker. Some of them are duologies, so hopefully I will finish them early in 2026. I am also adding upcoming releases to this page, even though I will unlikely read them this year, but just so I can remember in 2026 things that I am still yet to purchase. Once again, I'm taking some creative liberties with my romance trope bingo and counting the MMC from A Tribute of Fire as a man whore. Like, he is a man whore and it is a part of the story, but also the reformed part is a bit of a question mark at the end of book 1, so, you know. My TBR is quite specific this month, so I'm hoping to do well on it. Setting up my review layout off camera. If you'd like to see how I do it, just check out my September setup video. The first book for November is The Borrowers by Mary Norton. I haven't printed the cover for this yet, so I'm leaving it blank for now. This is a book that I have such fond memories of reading as a child. I found it in an op shop over summer when camping at the beach with my family, and I enjoyed the premise and series and wanted to revisit it now for the nostalgia and to remember the story better. In this world, there are borrowers, which are people smaller than mice who live in the walls of human houses and sneak into different areas to borrow items to live off. Ariete is a young borrower who is taken out into the main house by her father to learn the art of borrowing, and there she befriends the boy. Book one is the part of the story that I remember the best. I think I must have read it multiple times when I was a child, so it stuck in my brain better. But despite that, I still enjoyed reading it again, and I'm still looking around to try and purchase the rest of the series secondhand, and I gave it 3.75 stars. Next, I finished Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, which is book one of the Locked Tomb series. When I was reading the books for my best friend's birthday gift last month, I was talking to another friend about it, and she asked me to do the same thing with this book for her birthday this month, as it is a series she really wants me to read so we can discuss it together. This story is set in a mixed sci-fi fantasy world where there are necromancers who perform magic-based science and their cavalier who protects them. Through some unfortunate events, Gideon is forced into the role of Harrow's cavalier, which is a role she should never have been in, and they have to travel to another world to complete a dangerous task with an important outcome. Gideon is the sassiest and most thirsty main character I've ever met, and I love her, and the story was so different than others with twists I could never have expected, giving it 4.25 stars. Then I read A Tribute of Fire by Saria Wilson, book one in the Eye of the Goddess series. Leah is a princess and her kingdom was cursed with a forever drought where they can farm nothing but salt, and another kingdom is impeding their importing of that, so they're struggling to survive. She knows there is only one way to save her kingdom, by becoming a Locrian maiden who is selected to run through a maze while men with deadly intentions chase her to try and reach the temple and become a priestess. This book played out what you could say predictably, but without the negative connotations of that word. I saw certain aspects coming, but not every part of them, and it set up the overall series very well without being too much of a world-building drag that sometimes a book one can be. The author also based a lot of the story and world on real Greek mythology, which I always like learning more about as I've never gotten into it much in the past, especially not the more niche parts of it like this bit. Overall, it was a solid book and I gave it 4.25 stars. Lastly for this session, Song of the Forever Rains, which is book one in the Musai series by E.J. Mallow. This book follows one of the three sisters called the Musai, who all have magic which they can call forth in different ways, through voice, dance, or music. Lark is the youngest and she can turn a man mad with just a song. She is sent on her first solo mission as a woman to be courted by a duke who is illegally using a drug that should only be found inside the Thief Kingdom. She travels to his land and finds that his lands do not reflect the lavishly presented duke's own appearance. They are all living in squalor. Lark needs to find the source of this drug distribution and help the people of Lachlan, and she employs the help of the duke's stepson, who has some demons of his own. This was once again a magical world that felt like it was different to all the rest. I also enjoyed that this book focuses on Lark, but you got glimpses of the other two sisters and their potential suitors, so that you knew what you would be getting into in book 2 and 3 without it taking away from the current story. I can't wait to read about Naya next and what she will get up to, 4.25 stars. Now, with session 1 complete, let's jump ahead to session 2. Session 2 is a bit of a weird one. I only had 3 books to update and it was the 28th already, but I wanted to get them done so I could get this video out as close to the start of the month as possible. Once again, using the phrase creative liberties with saying persuasion is not a romance, but I wanted to get as far as I can in this goal, so as I said before, I'm taking it for myself. I'm also getting closer to the classics goal than I expected, considering that I didn't start the first one until September. I am majorly focusing on my 25 in 2025 this month, and all of these 3 books of this session were on the list. have officially filled up my series tracker now. If I read any more in December, which I know I will because of my 25 in 2025, I'm going to need to add a tip in. I typically don't add completed duologies to this list, but because I don't own book 2 of Crimson Moth and I know I won't get around to reading it that soon, I wanted to add it just so I don't forget to read it. I also learnt while filling this out that the Priory of the Orange Tree's next books are actually like prequel type books rather than a continuation of the current story, but I still want to check them out, so I added it in here. I got some new Tombow colours recently, so I'm making the most out of this calendar and trying 2 of them out. I tried to get colours that I found I was always missing when trying to match covers for the calendar colour, and red was definitely one I was always lacking. So this is the 847 and it's a very intense red, but when swatching them at Officeworks it felt like the best version for sort of my colour palette preference. And speaking of red, this is the first book, Crimson Moth by Kristen Ciccarelli. In this world, the ruling witches have been overthrown by non-magical humans, and every single witch in this kingdom was put to death when they took over. Rune is secretly one of these witches, and she's trying her hardest to not be caught, but also save any witches from the same fate. Her biggest enemy is her best friend's brother, who was instrumental in overthrowing the witch queens and now hunts for hidden witches, and who she had a crush on when she was younger, but he always seemed to hate her. You can guess where that is going, but I really enjoyed it, giving it 4 stars. Next, I read Persuasion by Jane Austen. This feels like a slice of life novel following mainly Anne, but also her extended family during a period of change in their lives. Her ex-fiancé, who she dumped because of pressures from her family, is also back in town, and it brings up the potential lingering feelings they have for each other. I'm always a bit on classics, sadly, but this one I found especially difficult to read as there were a ton of very long sentences that ran on and I would lose track of the point of what they were saying before they actually finished. The romance was also very much back burner, but I sort of expected that after reading Jane Eyre, so I wasn't as disappointed, but it did feel a bit nothing, and then suddenly at the end, last 5 pages, all romance everything. But nothing happened that particularly made me mad, so I ended up giving it 3.75 stars. Then I finally got brave enough to read The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. It has been sitting on my Kindle unread for over a year now, and I finally bit the bullet. This feels like a very high fantasy type book, being immediately thrown into a world with no hand-holding where the East worships dragons and the West detests them, and then everyone in between has different opinions. You're following POVs of at least 4 different people from both sides and the way they are working apart and then together to protect their kingdoms. There is a ton of information that gets dumped on you at the start, and coupled with the number of POVs and learning each character, it took me a while to understand the world and get into the plot. Once I got into it, however, the world was then easy to follow and made the plot enjoyable, but the major climax felt a bit rushed for such a long book. It's over 800 pages. I originally thought this was a series, which confused me when I got to the ending because it felt so conclusive, but now that I know the next book is a prequel, it makes more sense. I enjoyed it and want to keep reading the next one, 4.25 stars. That was all for session 2. Now let's jump to session 3, where I put in the last 2 books for the month and set up December. got to tick off another book of the 25 in 2025, and I have copies of all the rest to finish in December, so I should get this done. Just one more month and then I will have read every single day in 2025. I'm also specifically picking books to finish my alphabet challenge, only 2 left, and I'm actually reading one of them right now. I printed off the book covers I was missing when I printed off these new ones, so just quickly adding them in. The second last book of November was You and Me by Tal Bauer. Luke is a single father whose wife passed away 1 year ago, and he's struggling to connect with his teenage son, so he volunteers on his son's football team to try and get closer to him. There he meets Landon, an ex-Mormon who is also a single father to a boy on the football team, and they strike up a quick and very deep friendship. Landon left the church because after a sheltered upbringing he learnt that he was gay while meeting new people at college. Luke starts to really depend on Landon and vice versa, as their sons were already best friends and Landon is the type of dad Luke wishes he was. Luke wakes up one day and wonders what if he and Landon were more, and then things escalate from there. This was a very sweet book with no unnecessary third act conflict or miscommunication, and I really enjoyed it and was wanting to read it even when I was busy. 4.5 stars. Lastly, I listened to 5 Brothers by Penelope Douglas with my Spotify audiobook hours. This, as a basic summary, is about a rich girl who sleeps with all the men in a single family because she's trying to avoid being sold off to a rich man by her mother. It's another Penelope family incest why choose where she chooses, although this one is a whole lot less why choose than Credence. I really didn't feel any attachment to any of the characters, and the amount of miscommunication between the FMC and the brother that she obviously was going to choose was beyond frustrating. There are mental health themes in this book, and they weren't done terribly, but also there's some points where it wasn't as good as it could be. Overall, I was pretty meh on this book and I gave it 2.5 stars, which is the lowest rating I've given all year. Now that all the reviews are done, it's time to create the monthly stats page. We also need to fill out the start of journal pages to do with monthly stats, starting with the book bracket in which you and me only beat the Wolf King and nothing else. In November, I read 9 books, 3,960 pages, read every day of the month, had no translated books or 5 stars, had 1 reread, read authors from 4 countries, and completed 725 in 2025s and 1 alphabet challenge, finishing no major 2025 goals. And now it's time to create my December start of month page. I wanted to use one of my new Tombow colours and this new Ghibli-like PET tape, so went with this olive green to match the grass colour. I then proceeded to screw up the calendar lines because I should know that I can't trust myself to remember that a line shouldn't be drawn and not immediately erase it, but I found a way to fix it and it turns out not too obvious, so it's okay. I also don't love my choice of green pen, but it is what it is. I have 7 books on my TBR and they're all related to either my 25 in 2025, the alphabet challenge, or my romance trope bingo, so I should get them 100% done by the end of the month. I do also need a 1 bed trope book to complete my romance trope bingo, so if you have any recommendations, please let me know down in the comments. This theme was originally going to be more green based, but it has turned into more of a general nature type vibe, but I like how it's ended up. Now that we're complete, let's have a look at all the pages we've done in this video. I enjoyed my November theme and I had a lot of luck with finding good themed stationery to match the books for this month, so it was overall a good success. My December theme feels very comforting and I can't wait to finish up the year and see this journal complete. Keep an eye out soon for my 2026 reading journal setup video, and if you want to watch more, check out last month's video where I set up this cutesy November theme. Thank you all for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!